at this time, I'm going to ask Ms. Anaya to once again read the Open Public Meetings Act. Statement, please.
On Thursday, January 14, 2021, notice of this meeting was mailed to the press and the Current of Egg Harbor Township. Notice was also delivered that day to the Egg Harbor Township clerk and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall. Advertised instructions for this hybrid meeting were posted on our website and on social media on Friday, May 7, 2021.
Thank you. May we have roll call, please?
Ms. Alabarda? Here. Mrs. Byrd?
Present.
Mr. Delabarca?
Here.
Mr. Ireland?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price is here.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Here.
Mrs. Salagi?
Here.
Mrs. Gilbert Floyd?
Here.
And Mr. Castellano.
Here. I'm going to ask everyone to stand for the flag salute. Following the flag salute, we're going to remain standing for a moment of silence for Mr. Vincent Annell, our paraprofessional who sadly passed away this week.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. So again, welcome to our May work meeting. As we head into May and June, it's always an exciting time with end-of-year activities. As we know, this, though, is a year like no other. However, it seems as if not only each week, but each day, things get just a little bit better with this pandemic. We're back to school 5 days a week. And again, each and every day, things get a little more like 100% back to normal. I'm very pleased to just highlight that not only a little while ago did we arrange for vaccination for all of our staff who needed it, but just this past week, we're now arranging vaccinations on site for our students who are eligible, age 16 and above, and very shortly that will be starting at age 12 to 15, and we will also be arranging for vaccines on site. I think we all recognize the quicker, the more people can get vaccinated, we can get us closer and closer to 100% back to normal, something that we're all looking forward to very much. I want to make quick mention that last week was Teacher Recognition Week. But some of you may not know that last week was also Public Service Recognition Week, which recognizes all of our public employees, federal, state, and local. So I think combining those 2 weeks, I think I can say on behalf of all of us, board and administration, thank you to our teachers, our paras, our administrators, and all of our staff, no matter what particular role you play. Thank you for the fantastic job that you have done each and every day, and especially during this very, very difficult year. And I just feel like we are really turning the corner, and we are just almost there. And a quick shout out, not to be forgotten, this week is Special Education Week. So a shout out to all of our special needs students and staff. We appreciate you, and we thank you very much. So with that, I will turn over to Dr. Gruccio for her reports.
Good evening, everyone. Just real quick, I want to go over an update on our, what's called a COVID-19 update, but our 5 days of in-person teaching and learning is going very, very well. Students and staff were back for 5 days, full day in the elementary level and the abbreviated day at the secondary level. Things are going very, very well. We are seeing less COVID cases throughout the district, which is a great thing. As Mr. Castellano mentioned, we have been offering vaccines for teachers, and that was through Walmart over on 322 here in EHT. We partnered with them. Just made a phone call to Atlantic Care and working with Ms. Karen Semmett, supervisor of nurses, and we secured vaccines for students 16 years and older. Communication went out to parents just recently about this opportunity. Hearing the news about the 12 years and older just yesterday, made a phone call this morning and looking to expand the vaccine distribution. But the response was they have to find out more information as to when that will be available and how we will do that, but we've looked to combine that on the same date for all our students, staff as well, okay, so the opportunity to be offered to them. Our food distribution continues. There's been communications put out to our families to let them know about pickup and delivery. I'm going to put a plug out here for the importance of our annual free and reduced lunch application. Communications have been going out and will be going out. Even though we are distributing free food, it's very, very important for folks and families to fill out that free and reduced lunch application. And I really want to highlight the importance of doing so because it's advantageous to all. For students, you get your EBD card. Students and families, there'll be reductions in fees and waivers. Also, that applies to applications for SATs and college, etc. And in the end, it also helps the district receive funding. So it's important that those applications are filled out. We'd appreciate that very much. All right, so that's my report regarding an update on the district, and I'm just going to scoot down to the floor. And if Mr. Santilli can assist me technology-wise, we have some more information for you. Okay, so welcome. Okay, welcome everyone this evening. It's funny, we all say, oh my gosh, people, it's great to see people. So welcome, thank you for joining us for this work session. And normally on a work session, we don't have many presentations, but because between now and June 30th in our meeting schedule, we have a lot of public recognition that we will be doing. So without further ado, I'd like to share some hashtag EHT Pride with you. As a former coach, I stand up here so proud. First is to share with everyone that our athletic teams are doing exceptionally well this year, particularly this spring. But when there are extra highlights and achievements that are brought our way, I stand here with pride to be able to share with you all the accomplishments of our wonderful student athletes. And as a former student athlete and coach, it's extra stuff beyond the academic day, beyond responsibilities at home. It's being able to physically engage in your passion. And it's not only physical activity, but the heart and soul that goes into participating in extracurricular activities, whether it's athletics, fine and performing arts, whatever passion that a student has, but it's extra. So I really appreciate that. I know the time that goes into training, dedication to your team. So without further ado, it's my privilege and honor to highlight and recognize Miss Nikki Dance, who is a senior at Egg Harbor Township High School, and I have Mr. Pellegrino, athletic director, who's going to join me up here. I have Coach Weish, I have Principal Connor from the high school. Because Nikki, you can come on up here. Don't be shy, I know you're not. So, Nikki is our girls soccer scoring record holder. All right, so her statistics are up there. And Mr. Pellegrino, I'll hand over the mic to you so you can present some of the awards this evening. Very nice.
So we have the awards cases at the high school, and every time a student athlete breaks a record at the high school, we update and add additional things into the case. So we were waiting. Our normal art teacher was out this year on maternity leave, So we went to our backup, Ms. Baumgartel's son, Rooster, who was able to get this done for us. So it says 2017 to 2020, which is what her seasons were playing for the high school. Nikki Dance, 59 goals, all-time leading scorer. And then I'm going to hand that to you. That will be going into the trophy case. And then... wrap it up, sorry. I figured it was easy to refer. And as a memento for you, that way you can put this when you go to college next year at, right on your bed, right on your bed shelf, so you can see it every single day at Montclair. All right? Once again, Nikki Dance, our all-time leading scorer for soccer.
And Nikki, on behalf of the Egg Harbor Township School District, you received the Superintendent's Athletic Award tonight for high school girls varsity soccer school and the record of scoring here. You know, that will stand until it's been broken, but Nikki's put 59 of them in the net, so that's going to be tough. But we recognize you for breaking that school record and demonstrating your outstanding athletic ability and your talent in girls soccer, and we wish you well in your future endeavors. I know we stand here as #EHT Pride, but you are going to make us #EHT Proud. So again, on behalf of the Superintendent's Office and Board of Education, we want you to know that we appreciate your dedication and your performances this year. So thank you very much. Mom, Dad, you want a picture with Nikki? And thank you to you as well for driving her where she had to go and sitting in the stands and supporting her.
Thank you. Think up. Mike. Yeah. Mike, do it under the slide. Do it that way.
Okay, congratulations again, Nikki. Moving on to team now. Our Egg Harbor Township High School boys swimming team was the Atlantic City Press, or the Press of Atlantic City's Team of the Year. They swam out a 10-1 record in swimming. So excellent job. This is Coach Jameson. He leads the boys team each and every year. He works with the little ones, and all that work pays off. Mr. Jameson, on behalf of the Egg Harbor Township School District, we received the Superintendent's Coaches Award for the Press of Atlantic City being honored as the high school boys swim team of the year. So we honor the coach as well in his efforts. And then, if you don't mind, if you could share these certificates with the boys, that would be wonderful. But again, we're very, very proud of our athletic teams, very, very proud of the swimmers this year. As you know, a year of, some weird stuff, but the swimmers got to get in the pool. They were one of the first sports that came back inside, and they did a good job. So appreciate it, and we're very, very proud of you.
In part of this weird year, this was the first time ever we did an actual virtual swim meet between us and Middle Township. So we swam in our pool, they swam in their pool, and then we compared the scores.
Wow.
It was the first time ever for us. It went over very well. It might be the wave of the future. You never know. All right? Congrats.
Dad joke, dad joke.
Okay, and here we go. Press of Atlantic City Coach of the Year, NewJersey.com, Coach of the Year, South Jersey Sports Zone, Coach of the Year, and the coach of the North Division Public Champions, the Egg Harbor Township High School boys basketball team, went 14-1. Mr. Cameron Bell. Cameron, I want to tell you, and I know I've told you before, I'm so proud of you, the time and efforts that you put in, building the team, putting that team together, and working hard during the season, outside of the season. Everyone recognized your efforts. So you should be very, very proud. We're very proud of you. We're very proud that you represent us. And with that said, on behalf of the Egg Harbor Township School District, you are a recipient of the Superintendent's Coaches Award for all the wonderful things that you and your team accomplished this year. And I appreciate the hard work and the dedication and the passion and love that this man has for Egg Harbor Township. Egg Harbor Township high school graduate, and he's given back to his love. So we love you, and congratulations, and keep it going. All right, good job.
Not only was it a great year for the boys basketball program, but during the year, we also had a student athlete, Carlos Lopez, broke the 1,000-point mark this year. We'll recognize that next year as a senior, bring him back. Hopefully he's going to be, it'd be nice to say, 1,700 maybe, 1,800 hopefully. Wow. Wishful thinking. It was a very shortened season this year for basketball. We only had 15 games. Normally we're in the 30s. You normally schedule 26 plus the additional games, but due to COVID, so it was reduced. I think this team would have had a real good shot this year for South Jersey. Last year was, we got the final run at Cherry Hill, and then COVID hit and shut everything down. So, Coach, congratulations.
Okay, thank you, and congratulations to our honorees this evening, and, thank you for serving us with EHT pride. All right, so with that said, if, folks have some homework or another place to go, you're not going to offend me. I do have 2 more presentations, but that's totally up to you. And they're going to be quick, Mr. Castellano.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, thank you, good night.
Thank you. Okay, now we're back to normal. Now we got it.
I don't know. Sorry. Yes. Okay, moving on through the superintendent's report. A lot of this information was shared with the board at a prior meeting, but I just want to present again and remind folks of our preschool expansion and reconfiguration plan presented to you by central office. I will remind you again that we had a strategic plan 4 years ago. That strategic plan involved Embrace, Engage, Educate, and we were very proud to say that we were able to check off what was our stakeholders shared with us, which were items of importance for them and to them. It was a collaborative effort of over 100 folks from the community. It was very goal-focused, and we are very proud that first time we really stuck to the strategic plan, our vision, goals, and how we executed them. So there was many things, as I shared, that we did cover in our strategic plan, but this is one of the final things that we worked on, and this is going back over 1.5 years ago, prior to COVID. It probably would have been presented last spring, but we didn't have that in our schedule or in our mindset at the time. So finishing up on the work of stakeholder proposals, we are presenting to you a configuration for the Slayball and Swift schools. It's a proposal of a configuration that will begin in September. So let's look on the left. Our Davenport complex, our primary school, has full-day kindergarten in 1st grade. Our elementary school has the 2nd grade and 3rd grade. Our proposal includes having Swift and Slayball complex mirror the same thing with the full-day kindergarten in first grade in the Swift School, and the second and third grade in the Sleigh Ball School. If you look across at the totals, we have even, pretty much even numbers in our grade levels, and this is a mirror. Now, why is this happening? Looking at Sleigh Ball Primary, we have a preschool program there. Sitting in that building right now, the grant allowed us to expand our preschool program, but with those pre-K classrooms, we have 3 kindergarten classrooms in there. So it behooves us to remove the 3 kindergarten classes, allow us to take on more preschool classes, move the 3 kindergarten to Swift. What that does is that bumps out the second and third grade. So Swift will have, again, the full-day kindergarten and the first grade, and the second and third will be at the elementary. Regarding preschool expansion, remember what we had. Then we had a half-day preschool program where we had 5 teachers in 10 sections. We are in the process of getting to what we're projecting for September of 21 because of the support that you gave us for full-day kindergarten, because we applied for a grant and received that grant of $3.8 million. We're proud to say we'll have a full-day preschool program that includes these positions. It opens up opportunities, more job opportunities for, qualified folks. So just want to remind you of those things. That's what preschool expansion looks like. And the benefits of this reconfiguration involves all our stakeholders. And we had conversations with all these stakeholders. But for the students, those targeted interventions and services, and the consistency of the classmates. For teachers, the collaborative focus on learning. The PLC student achievement and growth. The community, it's uniting of that campus of those 3 buildings into one school. It's one school. 3 separate buildings, one school. For transportation, it's one home bus stop. For food services, our menus are based on our ages and the needs of the students. And the facility would be one school code represented by the DOE as per approval of the Egg Harbor Township Board of Education. So with hashtag EHT Pride, I present to you 3 buildings, 2 schools, and 1 complex, 1 school now named the Swift Sleigh Ball Complex. Okay, so without further ado, that is my recap in my presentation to you. We will need the board approval to be able to switch over to that 1 school code, and that'll be next week. Yep. All right, so we have 1 more presentation, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Mr. Santilli and Mrs. Moss, who are telling us that we are hashtag EHT ready. Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening. One of the action items tonight is for our ESSER 2 grant. We would be seeking approval tonight. Submission of the grant will be by this Friday. We are prepared to, provide the necessary information, and we wanted to share tonight some of the expenditures that would be within that grant, a huge focus. Obviously, a lot of different terms being thrown around out there. From learning loss to learning delay to learning acceleration. However, we do have a plan in place to service all of our students, especially students that we've identified that have had true learning delay during this pandemic, based off of the data that we have within the district that has gleaned really where those needs are. So this is just a snapshot of what that is going to look like, and we won't spend a ton of time going into the nitty-gritty of this, but we wanted to share with the board tonight what is going to be put into that grant and in preparation for this. So we want to talk a little bit about, Ms. Moss, the different grade levels in terms of how that is going to roll out, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So our focus will begin in June, focusing on our current seniors who might need a little extra boost to help get through some courses to fulfill their graduation requirements. So we'll be working with those students. Our teachers are hard at work with all of our students right now, continuing that work. But looking to start June 14th for our seniors who need to do some remediation with courses to be able to graduate. For our current 1st and 7th graders, as Mr. Santilli mentioned, we are identifying true learning delay using comparative data, and we're going to be able to bring them in to work on some fundamentals in math, ELA, STEM, and social emotional lessons. We will have in-person and virtual options. And then we really wanted to focus on our transitional grades into the high school. It's a big shift for students, a lot of skills that are necessary. So doing 1 week for our current 8th graders for that transition into high school, and then a week for our current 9th graders who might be virtual still, a way for them to kind of get acclimated to the high school and that transition from middle school to high school. We also will have the learning loss at the high school to focus on core contents, working on the Khan Academy and social and life skills. And then, of course, we have our extended school year for our special education population, and that will be focused on core contents related to the IEP and related services. And then there's going to be a special education supplemental program. So that's going to open up beyond the normal constraints of ESY to all of our special education population. That will also be in person. And then the rest of the money is going to go towards out-of-district ESY. And then we have a mentoring program that we're going to use throughout the next school year to continue to assist our students in coming back to school and getting used to being in school again. And then the technology plan for one-to-one with Chromebooks.
In addition to that, not part of the ESSER grant, and what you're going to see as, what we'll be releasing as a district, of course, is going to be, in essence, a way to market all of this. This is a lot of information, and this is just the grant. However, we have other programs that will be rolling out this summer. So we want the board to know in the community that we are going to market this in the sense so everybody is clear in regards to what is happening when, what is happening where, and as well as who could qualify for a particular program. For instance, Talons will still have their summer program, and that will in essence be running all summer at the Miller School. And also Aspire will have their summer program, which will be for 4th and 5th grades. Not necessarily part of the grant, but we didn't want to have the board feel as if that wasn't taking place. That is also an extension to all these other opportunities. And that concludes our update. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Castellano, that completes the superintendent's report for the work session.
Very good. Thank you for that report. I'll just see if any board members have questions before we go ahead into finance. Mrs. Bird.
I have a couple questions. The first is on the one building for Swift and Slayball. I saw on the slide that there are 19 pre-K classrooms in Slayball. With 19 pre-K classrooms, will this alignment of the two buildings into one allow for full specials for these classrooms so that teachers have their prep time? Additionally, what are the MD room counts in these buildings? I didn't notice that on the slides. And my final is on the ESSA. The Special Education Supplement Program, it says core content based on IEP mandates and related services. So can you give an example of what that means? Does that mean that if something's written into the IEP and the student didn't meet that goal, they're going to be identified for the program, or is it something else? I'm confused as to what those bullet points mean.
Okay, you want to start with, I think I got them all down, the specials, MD counts, and ESSER. Is that correct, Mrs. Bird?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Santilli, Ms. Moss, I know you worked on the scheduling of the building between the operational side and the curriculum side, so please share.
So for, I'll start actually backwards if that's okay. So in terms of the ESY supplemental, what that focus is going to be is actually an extension of normal ESY. However, all special education students will be invited to that particular program. An interest survey is going to be going out. Of course, space is limited, so hence why we do those interest surveys to see who is interested in attending. We're going to then have transportation as well included. And it would really be a focus of not necessarily just what would be in a student's IEP, but also based off of the data that we have where we can help them with additional supplemental support. It could be a focus on more towards literacy, a combination of literacy and mathematics, of course, social emotional. We do have components for SEL that would be included, and of course, related services. And that could be a time to make up some of those services that during the pandemic haven't been able to be met.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies, because that based on IEP mandates was a little confusing. So the fact that it's based on need of the student, not just what's written in their IEP, that's awesome.
Yep.
Great job, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
The preschool.
So the preschool, and I'm going to let Chandra address some of that too, but there are certain rules, and I'll let Chandra maybe talk about that as far as the specials are concerned with the expansion classrooms with preschool, correct?
Yep, so specific to the expansion, there are no specials. The preschool expansion program, they stay in the classroom and they go through the core curricular contents areas. The specials that will remain in the Slayball primary building is going to be music, specifically to help with the MD students who already get music and find enrichment through that program. As far as the MD counts, currently there are 7 classrooms. Next year, we're projected to have 5 classrooms based on the early intervention identification process.
Okay. Do we get through all those 3?
I had the prep time question as far as specials to do prep time. That's a scheduling thing. I'm not sure if you guys want to cover that.
So that, what I would say is that is being determined right now. So of course we have to rework schedules based off of start times, end times, in preparation for September, and administration along with Mr. Dorso, and then eventually the new supervisor will work through all of that.
Okay, so let me go to Mr. Delabarca or Ms. Alabard. Who did I see first? Me?
Thank you, Lou. Okay, so I have a few questions too. With Swift and Slayball, putting them together, having teachers move, is it possible to get some substitutes in to help maybe give the teachers some more time? I'm sure some teachers probably have 20 years worth of stuff that they have to pack up to move. And then for summer school, the summer programs, I was wondering how many hours a day it is, and whether the parents have a choice of in-person or virtual. And was an interest survey sent out to staff to make sure there's enough staff to cover all these programs?
If you don't mind, the last 2 topics, I have teacher, move, summer school. What were the other ones?
For the summer programs, if the parents have a choice of in-person or virtual, there's the 2 different dates, because I'm sure some families already have vacations planned.
Right. Okay.
And if there's enough staff to cover all these programs.
Okay, the teacher move, we work out with the union, and I have discussion with Mrs. Wazin. Because of the timing at the end of the year, we do have half days that the teachers have, but also sometimes the teachers want to see their kids the last couple days, so we have to speak to the union and see what's best for them. Regarding summer school and the programming, I'm going to allow the folks who planned it and had plans on paper to share. And then Dr. Charlton, you could take the personnel piece regarding the advertisements and responses to the jobs.
It doesn't matter.
So in terms of the options, so parents will have both options available to them. So there's an in-person option as well as a all-virtual option. We were intentional with that because we know that even by parent choice, it's, with the executive order still in effect, some students may still be opted as an all-virtual student. However, they can also do both. So that interest survey will also provide that information for us. The in-person, option is going to be a longer day. It's going to be from
8
8 to 1. 8 to 1. We mirrored that with Aspire because we wanted to help our support staff, and we've done a lot of, we've had a lot of conversations around that as well. However, the virtual option is not as long. We understand that we're not going to hold their attention for that many hours straight, so that's going to be a 3-hour virtual piece. So hopefully that answers your question there.
And as far as the staffing, the ESY program was the first one to be advertised approximately 3 weeks ago. In terms of teaching staff and certified staff, that is completely full. There was a need to make an additional 1-week posting for paraprofessionals because they did not fill all the spots. That's wrapping up now. And we're actually meeting with Mr. Dorso and his staff on Friday to ensure that all students with IEPs and have a need for a paraprofessional are matched up. The current posting that's out right now is for the Aspire and Talents program, and that has a few more days to run. And then the one for the Learning Delay program after tonight and communicating the scope of the program to the board, we were going to get that posting out towards the end of the week. But you bring up a good question in that it is a lot of summer programs, and there's only so many staff available in the summer and how to staff them. So we're keeping our fingers crossed in terms of the last program being advertised. Yep.
Just going to go to Mr. Delabarca and then back to Mrs. Bird.
I don't have any questions. What I have is a compliment and a thank you. This is, as an educator, this is so thoroughly planned, it's so thought out, and I think you guys, the whole team should be complimented for the detail that's in there. And the idea that our students who may have suffered something, and social, emotionally, academically, whatever, you thought of all those areas, and you're trying to provide for those students. And I think that is the greatest compliment we as a district can put forward. That we're thinking about our kids, we're coming up with outstanding programs throughout the summer. The questions that were asked delved into some of the concerns maybe about staffing, or about when the kids can go and the in-person, all of that. But I think you have that all covered, and we're thinking about all those areas. And I'm just so proud of us, and you folks have done, I think it's an outstanding job. I look forward to seeing the results of this when we come back in September, because I think we're going to be able to maybe have a pretty good start of the school year if we get these kids taken care of. And I'm just so happy to be part of the whole thing. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Delabarca, I'd like to thank you for making that statement and supporting us as always. I just want to also add, without getting into detail, there probably hasn't been a webinar, a conference, a conversation that we haven't had as a team, and I can tell you that every time we walk out of those, we're always high-fiving in a sense, or air high-fiving that we're right on point. Everything that they're suggesting that this grant is made for and should be focused on, we have been ahead of the curve with that. So with our planning, so it means a lot that you.
Well, just another point. You folks know that I'm involved with the state, and I see a lot of things going on at the different all over the state that I hear about. And this is outstanding. I think we should be bragging. Oh, that was the other point I wanted to make. We have to sell this in detail to our parents. We really have to make every effort possible to make sure our parents are aware of what we're offering, so we don't miss anybody. We don't want to miss any of those people out there, and I think that's a compliment. And I know statewide, we're probably doing more than almost anybody that I've heard about in the state, and I think that's something to be more to add to how proud we all should be.
And
That's
Mr.
great
Delabarca, you hit it right on, the nail on the head, because, sitting in my meetings, as you sit in meetings, you hear the information that comes from the DOE, guidance is coming out at the end of May, possibly this week, but at the end of May, but we're already on these things. We know we have to be on. We have a plan in place. We're not waiting. And my guess is just what you're saying. We're above and beyond with the expectations. So, very proud of the team. It is a lot of work. Thinking ahead, right? Thinking ahead. Last year was a lot harder than this year because of the unknowns, but thinking ahead and having a plan in place for what we all care about, and that's our students. So thank you.
Excellent, agree. Anyone else before I go back to Mrs. Bird? Okay, Mrs. Bird.
Thank you. I just I don't understand the numbers, so I probably just didn't write them down fast enough. So, Ms. Nye, if you wouldn't mind clarifying for me. We have 19 pre-K classrooms in sleigh ball, and they don't have specials. They have, it's all in-house in the classroom. So when do those teachers get prep?
I can't answer that question as I'm not in that world. I can just say that you're talking about for next September, and I think Mr. Santilli
Right.
talked about Mr. Dorso and the new director working on scheduling.
Okay, so
That
that's
is,
being worked out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
that's
got
not
that
something I
part.
can answer.
All right,
Sorry.
good, thank you. So, and then the 7 MD rooms, that's 7 total MD rooms from pre-K through 3rd in Swift and Sleigh Ball this year?
No, in
or-
sleigh ball primary is a pre-K only, and those are
So out of the
PSD
9
rooms specific, preschool disabled specifically. Right now, this year, there are 7 rooms. Next year, in September, will be 5 PSD specifically.
So the 7's out of the 19 or in addition to the
In
19?
addition,
Okay, so the.
the 19 is
26
preschool
are
expansion,
pre-K.
which is an inclusion program.
And then, how many MD, I think my question was not, I meant it not to be specific to pre-K for the MD classrooms. How many MD classrooms are there in Swift and Sleigh Ball for the projected next year's combination? And how does that
MD
compare to Davenport, since we're, trying to
MD,
model
yeah.
the schools?
MD grades 1 through 3 will remain, kindergarten through 3. It's K1 and 2-3 rooms. They will remain at Davenport. That's not part of the complex. It's at Davenport now and it'll stay there.
I'm asking, like, how many rooms do we have from our pre-K? Okay, so Swift and Sleigh Ball will be pre-K through 3, so pre-K, K1, 2, 3, right? So how many of those will be in the new complex? And how many do we have at Davenport, excluding, obviously, we don't have pre-K at Davenport anymore. We have K1, 2, 3. So I'm just trying to compare, like,
There is no comparison, Mrs. Bird. I mean, I'm just going to, pre-K disabled is your MD room, but for
Right.
preschool students, that's PSD. That's at Sleigh Ball Primary.
mm-hmm,
Davenport Complex holds K through 3 MD rooms,
right.
and that's staying at Davenport Complex.
How
It's not
many
gonna
of
be
those rooms do we
impacted.
have?
I can get that for you.
Thank
That's
you.
for Davenport, not in Sleigh Ball. I thought you asked for Swift Sleigh Ball specifically.
So I'm just trying to, because we were trying to model the schools after each other, so I'm just trying to get an understanding of what Swift Sleigh Ball will look like as a whole, because it's a whole community, and what Davenport looks like as a whole community, not gen ed versus self-contained versus, I want to see the whole picture. So that's what I'm
And I'm sorry, we don't have
So
that.
thank
I'm going to
you.
get that for you, but it wasn't part of the presentation because
Right.
we were actually presenting the changes in Swift Sleigh Ball. So I will
Right,
get that
right.
for you in a moment.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Mrs. Goberfloor.
I was just going to say that I feel when Ms. Bird was asking that question, all I could think of was Fernwood and Alder. I feel like it's, having two schools that are, supposed to be somewhat similar or equitable between two schools. I think I feel like that's going to be a continuous project. And I do think that it's often going to be compared in our community to kind of make sure that there's equity amongst the schools and that, whatever Davenport gets, make sure that's the Swift Sleigh Ball Complex has as well. So that's what I just had to say. That's what I thought of when Fernwood, when they created Alder as a second middle school. There was a constant comparison and making sure that whatever the students had in one school, they had the other. So I'm believing that our administration will always is working toward making sure that that's working. And the other question is, question I was thinking about about the pre-K and the teacher specials, and I was just going to ask the question. I think I know the answer, but every pre-K room has a teacher's assistant, right? They all have
Yes.
a TA.
Correct, yeah.
That's
And
correct.
that TA, I just did the TAs, usually, I'm not sure exactly how it happens here, but most of the grants, they have to have they usually can be, a teacher assistant is someone that can be with the children whether the teacher's in the room or not. So I didn't know if that was a way that we were thinking about probably incorporating the prep.
That's correct. So there are methods out there, and I can talk to you about the methods, but as far as the actual schedule, that's not my world. We are using teaching assistants. We're also using what they call floater teachers. The ratio is 1 to 8, so for every 8 classrooms, you have a floater teacher. So there's 2 new floater teachers going into this grant as well. So there is a way to cover the prep as far as I don't want to get into the actual schedule because that's not my world, but in the grant are teaching assistants, 1 per grade. There are floater teacher assistants and there are floater teachers specifically for coverage that the grant does fund.
Yep.
So you're correct, Mrs. Gilbert-Boyd. I have numbers for you if you're ready for Davenport.
Thank you.
So K1 is the class name for self-contained. It's not kindergarten or it's just K1. There are 6 at Davenport Primary. And 2-3 MD, self-contained, is 6 at Davenport Elementary.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, and just one other thing, real quick. In our pre-K students, they do, I'm assuming that they have a nap incorporated in their day.
Yes, there was a 1-hour nap period, has to be part of the day. Yes, that's correct.
I have another spot that they can.
No problem.
I'm sorry, what about Swift and Slayball?
I will, Swift Slayball Complex has no MD. They only have preschool disabled, and they have preschool disabled of 7 rooms. They're going to go to 5, and that's at the Slayball Primary Building, which will remain in Slayball Primary Building. Davenport does not have any PSD or preschool expansion. We made that last year.
Made that last year to put them in one area.
Correct.
Okay. I'd like to move now to Finance and Operations and ask for our committee report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. At our Finance and Operations Committee, we met on May 4th here at the Alder Boardroom, and attending was myself, Mr. Price, Mrs. Sullivan, Ms. Salaji, Ms. Anea, Mr. Brunetta, Director of Facilities. We talked about facilities, project updates for 2020-2021, info to be shared with the full board on 5/11/21, which is tonight, capital reserve recommendations, food service, the EBT P cards, next round of funding, we need to launch apps. Need lunch apps. The next thing we discussed was distribution of over 2,000 meals a week, added Davenport at 7 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. We talked about transportation, recruitment is ongoing, talking about working on dual role drivers with the EHDEA, action to be recommended to the board on May 18th. Business office, we discussed student activities, changes, and a bookkeeping position job description. We talked about a preschool financial specialist, which is on the agenda tonight. Action items. We spoke about out-of-district travel. We spoke about the ESSER grant that was pretty much discussed a little bit earlier, as you heard. Action items for May 18th next week. There's quite a few of them on here. We talked about rejecting bids for door replacements, award engineer of record, recreation grants that are due, Perkins grant, policy 6421, gifts grants, acceptance, asset disposals, ITS transportation, and we also discussed permission to bid lease purchasing financing. We talked about Elisa's Law security grant resolution language. I think we'll get into that a little bit more tonight. Other items discussed, we discussed the perimeter signs with the township, which are the drug-free weapon school zones that you see along different roadways. So we're working with the police department to see that they're up to date. Also, we discussed the Garden State Academy, a little bit about security there, we can get into later. What are we doing with the Eagle Academy? Well, there's going to be more to follow with that on the strategic planning for year 2022. There's going to be, we need to discuss Eagle Academy a little bit more. And then, of course, use of facilities. was discussed, Freeport Township recreation teams, and we'll discuss that in June's meeting to recommend policy. So that's my report, and I'm sure Ms. Anaya will have a follow-up on some of the things in there. And of course, as always, it's available in your Google Drive, all the information that I read out here. So thank you, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Price, and I do want to just expand on a few of the items on here. So to start with the Alyssa's Law, as you guys remember, this has been ongoing since the state passed the bond, I want to say 2018-ish. We, as a district, qualified for $413,000 for implementing or complying with Alyssa's Law. The district decided to go with an app we've talked about a few times. With that grant money not being able to fully fund all of our buildings, lights and strobes, that could be an option for compliance. We decided to use the money and apply for the grant for the reimbursement of camera projects that had already been done at the high school and middle school. Knowing when the funding comes through, we will then go ahead and do our elementary upgrades. We submitted formally in November. They are just now getting around to look at approving them, and they want specific resolution language to read that local funds will support any project in excess of the grant amount, knowing that it's not enough money to do the full project. So I updated the resolution so we can submit that, just to read, the board does recognize that if the project in this specific area was the cameras, if it's in excess of the $413,000, the board will fund the difference. Well, we already did, so that should go through no problem. The ESSER application we already covered. The door replacement, there were questions from the board. The board gets the agenda the Friday before the meeting, so you guys can look at it and ask any questions. There were two questions that came up. The first being if there was interest in our own department up to upgrading the doors that need to be replaced. So this specific bid went out. We have identified doors at the high school, Fernwood, Alder, and Davenport Elementary specifically, interior doors and exterior doors. The doors themselves are, like, some of them are laminate, so they're coming apart. They have weeping coming from the bottoms, so they're in some pretty bad shape. So we did identify the ones that were the neediest, if you will. When we saw the dollar amount, we talked about a rough estimate about $500,000, and that was the beginning of the school year. Going out for bid now, once we got all the specs together of which doors needed, size, hardware, which door what side does it open, left open, right open, all these things. The bid went out and it came in, all three came in for over $1 million. So we are rejecting those on the agenda for next week because obviously we can't afford to do $1 million worth of doors. So we're putting the bid back out to do 2 schools at a time, identifying the 2 schools. We were doing high school and Alder first, and then if more money comes out or if we have an opportunity as a phase 2, maybe a year from now, whatever the case may be, we'll do the second 2 schools. So the question from the a board member was about the last, can we actually look at doing it in-house? There are over 500 doors, and we don't have the manpower to make sure it's the proper door with the proper hardware district-wide. So it's not something, we do like to do a lot in-house, but that's not something we have the ability to do. Another question came up regarding the proposals. We did receive 6 proposals for mechanical engineer services. The question, we did have them available at our committee meeting. It is available with me today, so before you take action next week, if you'd like to see the proposals, I do have them with me. That concludes that section. I'm going to go back to the finance and ops. And I think that might be it for the updates, unless there's any questions. I might have missed. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Are there any board member questions or comments on finance and operations? Everybody's good. We need to take action on 5.2 through 5.4. So may I have a motion on that, please?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion on those 3 items? Seeing none, may we have roll call, please?
Sorry, Ms. Alabarda?
Yes.
Mrs. Byrd?
Yes.
Mr. Delabarka?
Yes.
Mr. Ireland,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan,
Yes.
Mrs. Solagi, Mrs. Gilbert Floyd,
Yes.
and Mr. Castellano.
Yes. Thank you. Let's move to curriculum, and I'll ask for our curriculum committee report, please.
On May 4th, 2021, the Curriculum Committee met. There was a special presentation from the representatives of Letters to give an overview of the science of reading and the professional development that will occur for elementary administrators and teachers. This occurred at 4:30 via Zoom. In attendance for this presentation was Mr. Della Barca, Ms. Bird, Mr. Santilli, Dr. Gruccio, Mr. Dorso, Ms. Moss, as well as myself. The regular committee meeting then commenced virtually through Google Meet beginning at 5 p.m. with the same attendees and additionally Ms. Gilbert Floyd. Professional development for the staff that will need board approval was identified and shared with the committee. There were no anticipated field trips requiring approval due to COVID-19. Other updates for the committee focused on the Communications Academy students receiving second place in the Just Drive PSA contest through NJM Insurance, partnerships being explored to support mental health, wellness, and counseling services for both elementary and secondary students, and plans for summer curriculum writing. Mr. Dorso presented the findings and recommendations made through the Reading Committee for Special Education Programming and Interventions. Mr. Dorso and Ms. Moss also gave an overview of Learning Acceleration summer opportunities for identified students and how the summer learning will carry over and throughout the 2021-2022 school year, including a mentoring program and integrating the new interventionalist positions. Specific enrollment and details of the programs will be forthcoming. That is about all.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from board members on curriculum? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to ask Dr. Charlton if there is anything on personnel for public session.
Thank you, Mr. President. We just discussed the idea of new appointees when they're coming to the board, that in the June meeting, we will return to having them visit us so we can welcome our newest faces in person again.
Good. That's right. We like seeing people in person. It was great tonight. Next, we're going to move then on to policy, and I'll ask for our policy committee report.
Thank you, and I'm pretty much going to be reading it because I left my policy committee report on my printer at home. So, you're welcome. All right, so on May 4th, 2021, the policy committee met, and present was Dr. Gruccio, Mr. Santilli, Ms. Elko-Hauk, Ms. White, her colleague, Mr. Castellano, Mr. Ireland, Mrs. Gilbert Floyd, and myself. Old business that we reviewed was bylaw 0169, board member use of internet social networks and other forms of electronic communication. The committee recommends moving forward with the language that we have discussed at the committee level and at full board level, and that will be up for final reading next week. Some new business. This was a mandated stress ESME alert. Bylaw 0145 regarding board member resignation and removal. This mandated change is due to some a new statute, and addresses when a board member must resign, must be removed, or may be removed from the board in accordance to NJ statute NJSA 18A 12-3, and it indicates that any member who fails to attend 3 consecutive meetings of the board without good cause may be removed. The mandate changes some language. It was originally kind of ambiguous if it was they had to miss a regular meeting. Now it states more clearly it can be a regular meeting, a work session meeting, but it does not delineate committee level meetings for that. That is a mandated change. Policy 2415, Every Student Succeeds Act. Again, this is a Strauss Esme alert. It has been updated to list the general provisions of Every Student Succeeds Act. The revised policy guide provides some general updates and removes listings all the individual title programs, as this list is not required to be included in a policy guide. It basically updates the language. And while doing that, it causes us to abolish some former policies that are no longer necessary, as you see in the report 2415-01 and further down 2415-03. They're abolished because the language is updated to more accurately reflect the law. So policy 2415 is a mandated change. Policy 2415-02, Title I Fiscal Responsibilities, also mandated. It's been revised to provide an additional section, supplement, not supplant. We had a language lesson that night for sure, and went over that. And I'm going to leave that up for Steve to address because I am still fuzzy on supplant versus supplement. And I have no problem sharing that. And this is a mandated change. So when I'm finished, I hope he can clear that up. We still were questioning it, like, even over the week. Okay, so sorry about that. And now, policy 2415-05, student surveys, analysis, and/or evaluations. This addresses the issue of a school district obtaining the written consent from parents for their children to participate in a survey, analysis, or evaluation, funded in whole or in part by the U.S. Department of Education. No Child Left Behind included a major amendment to the Federal Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, FERPA, and that gave parents additional rights which are still current under ESSA. So this has been removed. It has been revised to remove No Child Left Behind citation at the end of the policy guide and to provide updated definition of minor student. Social Security number is not protected information area, but it is protected information area under the New Jersey law, NJSA 18A 36-34, which is outlined in Policy Guide 9560. This is a mandated change. The following is also a mandated change, Policy 2415.20. Every Student Succeeds Act's complaints. The ESEA requires a complaint procedure for resolving complaints filed by an individual or organization alleging a school district of the NJDOE violated the provisions of the ESSA. Policy and Regulation Guides 2415.20 have been revised, updating the provisions of the complaint procedure to be in compliance with ESSA. Policy and Regulation Guides 2415.20 are mandated for all school districts that receive federal funding under the ESSA and must be adopted by the board. Policy 6360, political contributions, Strauss-Esme, this is a mandated Strauss-Esme alert. Policy Guide 6360 states a political contribution disclosure form is required for Board of Education contracts for contracted educational services provided under No Child Left Behind in excess of $17,500 as per the Department of Community Affairs. The policy guide has been revised to remove the provision referencing contracted educational services provided under No Child Left Behind and has been replaced with any educational services provided under any federally funded program, which would include any ESSA program. Policy Guide 6360 is mandated. Okay, Policy 8330, student records. This is a mandated revision as well from Strauss-Esme. Policy Guide 8330 references a provision of No Child Left Behind that addresses student information being provided to military recruiters, an institution of higher education, or prospective employers, if a school district prepares a student information directory. The ESSA made only several minor changes to this provision of NCLB, which are addressed in NJSA 18A 36-19.1 and outlined in further detail in Policy Guide 97.13. Policy Guide 8330 has been revised to reflect these changes. Policy Guide 8330 is mandated. I'm almost done, I promise. Policy 9713, recruitment of special interest groups, Strauss Esme Alert 222. Policy Guide 9713 addresses the requirements outlined in the same as I've been quoting and in the ESSA. The ESSA made several minor changes in the requirements. A minor student may only opt out of their information being disclosed with parent consent, and the district must annually notify parents of the opt-out provision. This is a mandated change. Policy 5330.04, administering an opioid antidote. This was a mandated change as well, and a welcome one, because we had debated this a little bit, and they solidified some guidance on this policy. So the new statutes are in effect, and Strauss Esme developed the policy and regulation guides for this and outlined with the language in the statutes. Subsequently, the NJDOE published guidelines for opioid antidote administration within schools that included some recommended options and details that are not included in the statutes. Policy and regulation guides 5330.04 have been revised to provide the options and additional details as provided in the guidance. The revised policy and regulation guides provide greater detail regarding the physician standing orders, the training requirements for the employees designated to administer the opioid antidote, the replacement of the opioid antidote upon expiration, the administration of the antidote, and the limitation of liability attached with administering the antidote. The revised policy and regulation guide should replace the district's existing policy and regulation. And this is a mandated change. We are still working on the policy 7231, property policy crowdfunding. We had quite a busy night, as you can tell from the report, and so that is forthcoming, possibly on next month's agenda. And I apologize for the long-windedness, even though you're used to it, but that concludes my report.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on policy? Mrs. Sullivan.
I still have a question on bylaw 0169. Number 6 in that policy states that we are not allowed to answer any questions from the public on any social media or in person. If I'm misunderstanding this, we're not allowed to answer anything pertained to the school district. We should refer everything to the proper people. I'm wondering if this means, the way it is written means if somebody says the high school meets at 9 o'clock and we know it meets at 7:30, we're not allowed to do that. To do that, is that correct? We need to refer them to somebody? I still think this whole policy is entirely too limiting. And for those, if this policy is going to go through, I'd like the board members that have me blocked from their social media to address that and let me see their social media also.
Do we have any other comments? Mrs. Solari.
This is the only thing on the, this bylaw is the only thing that was discussed that is not mandated. I submitted a shorter version. I don't see why 2 pages have to remind somebody of how to behave as a board member. There is a code of ethics that you're to follow that you swore to, and I believe that that should be enough of a reminder. So therefore, I can't support this policy.
Any other board members? Okay.
I just had one thing.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Mrs.
President.
Gilbert-Floyd.
Did you have something, Ms. Sullivan?
No, I just wanted to know if there was going to, am I reading that part that I mentioned, am I reading that correctly? Number 6, under the policy.
I'll go ahead and
I'll let her.
let the chair respond.
I read number 6 as board business, and I think that's different than daily times of when a school begins. So I'm reading this and I'm interpreting this as postings regarding board business or just school district business that could be perceived as you knowing more than what maybe you're intending. I think that I hear what you guys are saying, and I appreciate your comments and your input, definitely. As the chair, I think that we have gone back to the drawing board a bunch of times on this, and we've discussed it in full board discussions, in committee level discussions, and I think at this, we've taken the language from the experts that we trust, Strauss Esme, and New Jersey school boards. We've combined the language. We haven't added to it. We've just took what we're, from the best of both and put it together. And we've also had our own legal experts go over it. We've had so much discussion over this. I think it's time that we vote on it and let the chips fall where they may. And if it becomes an issue where it's causing more problems than what we're trying to avoid, is then let's relook at it later. But for right now, I think it's time that we try it and we see how things go, and we can always go back to the drawing board later. I'm not speaking on behalf of everyone. I'm just saying, to answer number 6, this is how I'm interpreting it, and and if the rest of the board wants to move forward, I suggest as the committee chair we do so.
Can I ask Mrs. Halkalko if there's anything you want to chime in on with regard to that provision?
Sure, that provision was one of the ones from Strauss Esme's recommendation, and I also agree with the interpretation that it's discussing specifically Board of Education or school district business. If it's a parent asking a general just school question that because you're a grandparent or a parent, I think that's a little different. And I just also want to point out, before you go to all those disclaimers, it does say on top of it, when using social networks, board members are advised to. It's just reminders. It's reminders that you should be aware of when you're on social media. It's not saying shall, it's just saying board members are advised to do those following things.
Okay. Anything else? Mrs. Gilbert Floyd, and then Mr. Island.
Yeah. I did have a statement or question, but I had asked Mrs. Sullivan if she had something else she wanted to share. I just wanted to get clarification on the social media and who's blocking people who are. I didn't know what you were saying. Are you?
I am blocked physically from a few board members, any of their pages.
So we talk about limitations and censorship and things of that nature in this policy, like having brought up about this particular policy, but I don't know that we're definitely mandated to work together as a board, but I don't know that we're required to be friends on Facebook or social media. I don't know if that's I don't know where that would come into play, or how we can require someone to unblock us or accept our friend request. I don't know if that really fits here.
Well, it's one thing to be blocked. It's another thing when, folks aren't friends. Those are
Correct.
two separate things.
Correct.
But
Because if I unfriend someone or something, that wouldn't be something we bring up here, I don't think. As long as we work together.
No, who you're friends with on Facebook is nothing to do with being a board member.
Mr. Ireland?
Thank you. Just going into my notes, Mrs. Sullivan, just to answer your question and to piggyback on Mrs. Bird and Mrs. Halko. I did ask that question in one of our previous meetings because we talked about this extensively in multiple policy board meetings, committee meetings, excuse me. Because I asked, can somebody share something like an accomplishment on the district, or like you said, answer one of those questions? And if you bump up a little bit into the policy, it says that board members' use of social networks shall not damage the reputation of the school district employees, students, and their families. Answering a question 9 o'clock or sharing a district accomplishment or something like that is not damaging the reputation of the district or anything. And I think that's what we brought up in our committee, and that's why the clause is up there. So to answer your question directly, I don't think it does meet that.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Again, I want to reiterate, I have never seen on any social media anybody damaging somebody else's reputation. I think this policy is entirely too restrictive. Nobody has a right really to monitor my Facebook page. Again, we sign a code of ethics at the beginning of every year of our term or when we accept our position. And yes, we are subject to a higher standard that I don't think we need to be reminded of everything in this policy.
Thank you. Mrs. Byrd?
Ms. Howe, could you refresh my memory, please, on the purpose and why these policies were drafted? Because I believe the Code of Ethics were written prior to the social media, so the need for having them falls outside of the ethics. So could you please refresh our memory just so that we're clear as to why the additional policies were necessarily written from Strauss Esme and New Jersey school boards?
Sure. Thank you. Exactly what you just said, Mrs. Byrd. When the Code of Ethics was written, social media was not what it is today. I don't even think it was contemplated when those Code of Ethics were created. So if you talk to Strauss Esme or if you talk to Rand Friedman or another school board's representative, they will tell you that the reason school boards and Strauss Esme created these policies is that there were questions about board members and social media, and they had numerous requests. Since they have not changed the Code of Ethics, this was one of the ways they could create these policies to help advise board members as to what's appropriate to remind them of the Code of Ethics, but also how the Code of Ethics could relate to certain social media situations because they just might not have been contemplated at the time because it hadn't been in existence.
Mrs. Sullivan?
And then again, I would like the committee to take another look at Mrs. Salagi's. She had 2 small paragraphs which covered everything in it.
Any other board members on policy? Mr. Santilli.
I just wanted to clarify for the board that Mrs. Salagi's recommendations were shared with the committee. They were discussed and reviewed. So I didn't want anyone to think that that wasn't the case. They were there, so just so everybody's clear.
Go ahead, Mrs. Gilberford.
I just think that once, when we as individuals decide that we are going to be on social media, and I think I said this a couple meetings ago, we could take social media and embrace it and make it something positive. We're public figures, and listen, I can sit here and tell you that I know my page has been monitored. I know people who have taken things from my page and posted in different places. Is it fair? Was some of the things they were saying about me true? Some of the things they were saying about me were their opinions. Some of the things they said were rude, disrespectful. But at the same time, you can't allow anyone to stop you from living your life, being on social media. Somebody is always going to monitor us, me as an individual, you as an individual. And it sounds like, easier said than done when people are saying mean or nasty things about you. But that's what they're doing. And you know what? What comes around goes around. And think, I always tell people, you know what? You can try to go at every post or try to make a comment. It's not even worth it. People are going to have their opinion about me, about you, about whoever. Do not let anyone stop you from living your life or posting your things. Somebody's going to monitor it. Somebody's going to twist it. Somebody's going to make something out of it that it may not be. It's not fair, but it is. It kind of is what it is. And that's all. I just wanted to say that, and I think we all know that. And I tell people, when you post things, let your conscience be your guide, and know that, somebody's going to like what you say and someone's not going to like what you say.
Mrs. Sullivan?
Then I would like to know why I was singled out by board members.
Are there any other comments on policy? Okay. Seeing none, we are going to move on to a couple of items. The first is, this past Saturday, the New Jersey School Board Association held our legislative committee meeting. In attendance were myself, Mrs. Byrd, and Mr. Ireland. It was a very full agenda, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Byrd to give us a quick recap.
All right, thank you. We had the pleasure of having Dr. Gleason from the New Jersey Department of Education attend with another one of her colleagues, Diana Pasquale. Most of their presentations were centered around SO 1, 2, and 3. Dr. Gleason, she is the Assistant Commissioner of Division of Academics and Performance, and she highlighted a lot of what you guys talked about in your presentation today, so that makes it easier. ESSER 1, the grant period was March 13th, 2021. Sorry, I hit something. To 2022, and CARES Act, aka ESSER 1, were use was broadly flexible funds and to help districts meet the demands that COVID placed on schools. Elementary and secondary school emergency relief, acronym for ESSER. 2, that period is now, runs from March 13th to September 30th, 2023. ESSER 2's emphasis is on addressing learning loss, reopening school, and air quality of schools, and can be tied into ESSER 1 funds. Applications for those funds, which you guys are so diligently working on, are due at the end of the month to finalize, and the applications, I already said, can be tied into ESSER 1. So the state must allocate 90% of the incoming funds of ESSER 2 based on learning loss, reopening schools, and air quality. In addition to the state's 90% allocation of these funds, 10% can be set aside and is set aside into 2 non-competitive entitlement grants. ESSER 2 includes 10% for learning acceleration grant, and that's based on Title I formula. The larger a district's percentage, the larger the allocation. The second portion of the entitlement grants is the mental health grant portion, and it's based on overall enrollment. The state's earmarking 10% for learning acceleration and mental health. Sorry, I repeated myself. With the learning acceleration grant, a district is required to use 75% of the allocation towards STEAM, and the DOE mentioned, Dr. Gleason specifically mentioned, she wants to see a focus on science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and also there's a requirement for 25% of the sub-allocation for literacy in the arts. The mental health grant can be used to support school-based mental health systems that support students and staff, and the DOE is looking for systems that include multiple tiers of support that will allow districts to provide supports that are sustainable after the grants. Dr. Gleason suggested that districts provide a community needs-based assessment to determine the best ways to use these mental health funds. Simultaneously, funds from the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, ARP ESSER 3 fund is enacted March 11th, 2021. This federal funding source provides a total of nearly $122 billion to states and school districts to help safely reopen and sustain the safe operation of schools and to address the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, on the nation's students. The difference from ESSER 1 and 2 from 3 is that 3 has much more stringent rules and guidance on the permitted use of these funds. State allocation of ARP ESSER funds, the state must subgrant not less than 90% of its total ARP ESSER allocation to local education agencies. These funds can be used to reopen schools safely, sustain their safe operation, and address students' social, emotional, mental health, and academic needs resulting from the pandemic. The state must allocate these funds to local educational agencies on the basis of their respective shares of funds received under Title I, Part A of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965. The ARP ESSER fund includes 3 state-level reservations for activities and interventions that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs and address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on underrepresented student subgroups. 5% of the total ESSER 3 allocation for the implementation of evidence-based interventions aims specifically at addressing learning loss, such as summer learning or summer enrichment, extended day comprehensive after-school programs, or extended school year programs. 1% of the total ESSER 3 allocation for evidence-based summer enrichment programs is also included, and 1% of the total allocation for evidence-based comprehensive after-school programs are included. Dr. Gleason spoke of a readiness checklist that she said would be available from the Department of Education late May, early June. No, kind of an ambiguous timeline. She said, we're hoping, cross your fingers. She suggested that districts use this not as a black and white yes and no checklist. She said, see it as more of a continuum and to utilize your established committees, such as our Restart and Recovery committees, used over the last year to help brainstorm how to maximize the resources to best fit the needs of our community. She stressed that the importance of stakeholder engagement is very important in this process and encouraged districts to listen to their stakeholders when distributing these funds. That is the bulk of our meeting. We spoke about a lot of legislative updates. However, I've already reported out on them in last month's report. So I hope I got the ESSER 3 stuff right. A B? I don't know. It was a lot, but
Thank you very much.
That report
No.
I had, I didn't print that one, so I had that. But thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Byrd. Appreciate that. Anything, Pat? Mr. Ireland?
Can she reread that?
I know, right?
Just kidding. It was all spot on. Thank you. It was actually a very, very, very important meeting. I love attending those because you get to see at a different level of the downward direction of the mandated policies or how everything plays into what we are discussing today, and we get it a couple days earlier or a month earlier. So to tie everything together, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's it.
I just have to say my font is 15 and I still can't see it, and when I put my glasses on they're fogging, so that's why I kept saying I already read that, wait, I have to go back. I really can read, everyone, I promise. I just can't see.
Okay. So turning from New Jersey school boards to Atlantic County school boards, and we will recognize Mr. Del Barca. I'm sure he has some highlights for us.
I have reminders again to our board members. Tomorrow, the New Jersey School Board Association begins their education symposium. It's tomorrow and Thursday. So if you have registered for that, there will be programs both days that will cover all encompassing things that we talk about here regarding education in New Jersey. Also, tomorrow night is Atlantic County School Boards Association virtual meeting at 7 o'clock. The program will include recognition of individual board members for their accomplishments during the past year. It will probably include exactly some of the information that Mrs. Byrd just shared with us, because we usually have a legislative report at that time also from the state. They will be talking about possibly having our county meetings be in person in the fall. There's a lot of discussion going on at the state level of how we can possibly have the county meetings be in person, but also be a hybrid version to allow for people who would like to be there virtually. So that probably will be some more information about that tomorrow night. And the other important item tomorrow night will be the election of new officers for the Atlantic County School Board Association. So all we need is one member from our board to make sure they're there tomorrow night, because that's one member will be the person who will vote for our representative. And each of the 26 local school districts in the county will hopefully have someone there for the election. So look forward to tomorrow night's meeting. It should be an interesting one, and it's at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Del Barca. One other item before we go to public comment. I think we've scheduled a number of things we talked about. We never had the opportunity with the pandemic to recognize our board members who left the board last year. So I'm going to suggest that we do that at our June 29 meeting. If everyone's okay, that gives us plenty of time to get ready, and we'll have an award and a recognition for them then, June 29. So with that, we're going to move to public comment. We will start here in the room with anyone who's live. Then we will go to our emails. Then we will go to the telephones. 3 minutes, as you all know. And remember that we cannot comment on personnel or litigation. And it may be the case if we have a very complex question that someone may have to get back to you with more information. Mrs. Cruz, very good to see you. Come on down.
This one. I didn't get to check it, so you might have to slide up.
Let's get you all set up.
Thank you. Sonia Cruz, 207 Egan Avenue. It's nice to see everyone. I'm coming on behalf of EHT Project RAD. I just wanted to report that we've been working with Mrs. Connor and Scott Miglior in regards to that we are unable to do a normal, regular Project RAD this year like what happened last year. So we have discussed adding to the senior picnic. So we're going to add some more food, some fun stations. The kids are also, we've committed some money to the class to have a souvenir that would say Class of 2021. It's kind of a surprise, so they'll see it that day. We are going to continue to support the Class of 2021 by running our Senior Smiles campaign again. So that's twofold. So staff, administrators, bus drivers, will be asked if they would like to support a student individually. So it's kind of like an adopt a senior. That letter went out today to all staff district-wide. As always, we're committed to make sure that every student is matched up. We were very successful last year, and that is our goal again this year, to include Eagle and Bridge students also. We are also going to have our Project Grad live raffle. So the money that we allotted for prizes will still happen again. We have a group of teachers that we call the Prize Patrol that would, after the drawing, go ahead and deliver those gifts to the students. Our Senior Smiles also includes going out to the community and asking them for $5 Wawa gift cards that we would put in the bags. Senior parents are sponsoring a senior goodie bag that will be given the day of the Senior Olympics. So we are involved, we are committed to the same amount of money that we did last year. So we want all parents, senior parents, to know that, that these students are going to be recognized. Okay? Any questions about Senior Smiles or anything like that?
Can we participate, Mrs. Cruz,
Absolutely.
like we did last year?
Absolutely. I don't know if the emails go out to you,
Okay.
if they didn't, then I'll make sure I'll push it. But definitely, please.
It was a real pleasure to do it last year.
Yeah, it was fun. We have great pictures, and it really is nice to see like your kindergarten teacher come and like surprise you and support you. So it is a really nice thing. We will take pictures. We will be nobody in Project Grad staff our volunteers will have access to addresses. It's strictly through the school district just to protect everybody's safety. Okay. And then I do have a couple questions about the other stuff that we talked about today. Is kindergarten not included in the summer program expansion? Like, are kindergartners not getting any?
Kindergarten, no, it's not included.
And why? Just wondering.
I guess it's based on need and data that we have. There's a lot of different variables that go into that. But
Okay.
our main focus this year was going to be for our current 1st through 8th grade, and then focus on 9th through 12 as well.
Okay, thank you. And then, Mrs. Floyd, I'm glad that you said what you said. It's nice to see that we're moving forward as far as with the schools and stuff like that, but we have to keep in mind that we are a community. So it's still EHT, you know, I agree with you. You know, sometimes Davenport just doesn't, you know, feel like they're part of that community. And I'm a strong Davenport person, a big cheerleader for Davenport. That's my side of the community. I live on that side of the block of the neighborhood. But I think it's really important that we stress to everybody that we are still a school district that encompasses everybody, pre-K through 12. And, you know, it's important. You know, I think we do in the two schools, that means the Parents Club's going to change a little bit too, because now it's going to be one building. So I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that. The other thing I wanted to say is that as we move forward, and I haven't been around a lot because I have my own freshman that, you know, she had the same problems in college. She didn't get to experience a lot of the things that she normally would. So she got, you know, not a good senior year and not a great freshman year. But anyway, as we move forward, it's important that we let the community know what's happening. I think it's really important. We're kind of like, everybody has different opinions, but we need to kind of come together because at the end of the day, it's for the kids. So we have to show the kids as adults, we're working together, the teachers, the bus drivers, everybody's working together. I know I reached out for a client, I reached out about lunches being dropped off because my family couldn't get there. I had a family that could not get there. The next day, the food was dropped off right at the porch. And I was so thankful. That shows that you're listening to them. So I hope there's a plan, Dr. Gruccio, because you're all about community. I hope there's a plan to let the community know what the process is. Because September is around the corner, and we want kids to feel positive about September. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cruz. We appreciate all that you do. Very much appreciated. And we're looking forward to
Don't we usually give a
a
donation?
great end of the year season. Hold on, I'm being,
Don't we usually give a donation?
could you,
I can't hear you.
yeah, I can't hear you. Could you use the microphone, please?
Don't we usually give them a donation as a board?
Well,
You didn't ask.
For project graduation, we do.
You didn't ask.
Sorry.
all right, so hold,
I'm going to tell you why I did not ask. I'll be honest with you. I didn't ask last year because you guys did an amazing job last year by donating those yearbooks. That was a dream and that happened. So I didn't ask this year. But we are asking for donations from other, you know, businesses that might be able to support us. So yes, of course, I'm always going to ask for money. You know, it's fine. We'll work for food. But here, yes, I would like a donation for Project Grad. Municipal Alliance is going to donate, hopefully donate to us too. And there's a few individuals in the community that have already reached out to us and say, we're still going to support you. So thank you.
well, we're definitely interested in doing that. I know I didn't see it this year, so I figured there was a method to it. So why don't you go ahead, and Mrs. Cruz, I'll ask you, you know, get in touch with either Ms. Nye or Dr. Gruccio. Let us know how we can help, what we can do, and we'll do our best as we always do.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else here? Mr. Gunther, very good to see you.
Hello, Matt Gunther, 24 High School Drive. I just wanted to remind everyone that this Friday and this Saturday are the live recorded streams of Les Miserables starting at 7. If you did not get to see the musical when we filmed it over spring break, you absolutely must carve out 3 hours to see that this weekend. You will be so super impressed with the work that these young people have done. It is probably the most fine production that I have ever worked with in my 20-plus years of working with the theater, almost 29 years here in the district. Thank you.
Agreed. It was fantastic, so wonderful to see. Anyone else? Mrs. Connor? No? Well, all right, I just figured we'd, cover everyone who's here. You're always welcome. All right, so do we have email questions?
We do not have email questions this week.
Okay, so we will go to our phone lines.
please.
I was checking to see if it was streaming. That's a new one too. Yeah, check it. That's what I did. Fine. Our community has been watching at home, and I think they're very pleased with what they've seen, so they're not calling in. Sure. No comment.
I gotta
I'm
talk
sorry?
to you about that.
I'm tired of it. It's been up for 52 seconds. Did you just get yours up? I will wait another 30 seconds just in case they have an internet issue. That's fine, we'll wait.
I know the meeting you had for.
I think it's the internet in this building. Let's go for forward.
That's okay, we'll wait another 30 seconds just in case somebody's on the road and they may have been delayed as well. That's true.
What they're gonna see on my kids.
Okay, all right, we are good. Yeah, we answered that question perfectly. So, hey, all right, so now, board members, comments from board members? Anyone? Mrs. Bird?
I really hope we can get kindergarten on the summer school schedule. I missed that. Thank you, Ms. Cruz. I understand it's a logistics nightmare, what you're dealing with, but that's all asking an awful lot of our first grade teachers to bring in kids who probably are lacking a lot of developmental skill or foundational reading, foundational math, foundational writing skills that they attain in kindergarten. I hope that we can somehow at least carve out the ones who are really struggling and fit them in somehow. Without a strong foundation, it doesn't matter what's built afterward, in my opinion.
Miss Halliburton?
I have to agree with Christie on this one, excuse me, Ms. Bird, on this one, because without a strong foundation, the building's going to fall. And we all know that. So I wouldn't say all kindergartners need to come in, but definitely the kindergarten students that are struggling, that maybe didn't thrive during the time that school was virtual. But what I want to say is thank you to all the teachers and the staff. And as a teacher myself, I know it's been a long year and a half. And I mean, the teachers my children have personally are all fantastic. They have been great with communicating with me. I'm a bit of a helicopter mom, but, you know, I guess it works because, you know, it was a good day in the Alabarda household yesterday. One of the twins got a National Junior Honor Society letter, the other one got Student of the Month, so. And without the teachers being on top of them and communicating with me, it wouldn't have been possible. So I know how hard everyone is working this year, and I really thank everyone. I did notice people asking, and it was something I'm interested in too. Last year, due to COVID, the 8th graders did not get their National Junior Honor Society awards. I mean, they got them sent home, but you know, they didn't get like a presentation. And I'm sure there's other groups maybe that did not get the same thing. And I was wondering if there's any way to give, although the students got their certificates and pins and whatever, is there any way to give the students this experience that they missed? Because, you know, it's a great honor. And these students have worked hard, and I just feel that they deserve it.
Thank you. Mr. Delamarca.
I'm going to agree about the kindergarten experience this summer. We worked so hard to get full-day kindergarten into our school system, and we achieved that, even though that during this past year, I know they experienced abbreviated days and virtual experience for kindergarten. But we all know that there are going to be students who have serious delays, and we should be looking at those students at least to see if we can help them begin first grade successfully next year. Because I think I know it's going to be a struggle and another challenge for you folks, and you've done such a great job so far, but if there's a way that we could possibly include those students who really have some concerns this summer, that would be a nice bonus for all of us, and I think especially for the students.
Possibly a conversation for your next curriculum. See what you guys can, work on. Other board members?
I have something.
Yes.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Ms. Cruz, it's nice to see you. And of course, I'm always available to support the project graduation, as you know. It's probably one of the most fun events to participate in. And I'll be happy when someday we're back at the high school overnight like we were a few years ago. So, also, I wanted to mention that I think it was nice to see all the athletes come in tonight. I think it was a great presentation, and it was nice to see some positive things going on as we come out of this COVID pandemic. So I just wanted to mention that. And I also wanted to mention I'm looking forward to the retirement celebration for the teachers that's coming up next week, next Thursday, May 20th. So I did reserve my spot, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's all I have. Again, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Any other board members? Just, I want to see if anyone who hasn't gone, and then I'll go back to, okay, Ms. Alabarda. I don't see any others.
I'm sorry, I totally forgot. I went to watch Les Miserables, and it was amazing. I just wanted to let you know that everyone did such a fantastic job. I cried, I laughed, I cried a little bit more. You know, for high school students, it was incredible. So I'm hopefully going to get to watch at least one of the nights, it streamed again, because it was so wonderful. I really encourage everyone to watch it because these students did an incredible job, and as well as the staff that worked with them. And I also wanted to thank everyone for the support with the Crew flower sale. It was a big success. And, I thank you. My kids are all going to be involved with Crew for the next however many years. So thank you.
Ms. Cooper-Floyd.
So I was just thinking of sitting here and listening to everyone giving thank yous and different things of that nature. And when Ms. Alabarda was thanking teachers, I also thank the teachers for all that they've done, but I also like to thank the teachers. I was thinking about custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, you name it. I know I'm probably leaving somebody else, the school nurses. Wednesday is School Nurses Day. Tomorrow, right? Yep. And also, I also want to, the secretary, because I start naming, and I already did, and I want to forget someone, but all staff members in Egg Harbor Township School District. But I do want to give a shout out to the building administrators. And Ms. Alvarez said, as her being a teacher, she understands the hard work that goes into it. And myself being a building-based administrator, give them a thank you too, because sometimes they're kind of, not intentionally, but it's kind of like how you forget about mom sometimes, because mom just does what she does. Your clothes just magically appear, or food magically appears on the table. And I know that it takes a lot of work to run a school and to run a district, and of course, thanks to the administrative team, but just to thank everyone, because I know this is a team effort to run a well-oiled machine like Egg Harbor Township. And I've always said we're not a perfect district, we have work to do too, but we are I do believe we're a flagship district, and we're on our way, and we have those tough conversations about things that do work, that don't work or need work, and that's how you create a well-oiled machine. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, just want to remind board members, hand in your questionnaires to Ms. Anaya on your way out, and I'll see if administration has any final remarks. I do want to point out from our legislative committee meeting, and we mentioned this also in our legislative testimony in the spring. Chapter 44 has posed a challenge to many districts, posing a challenge to our district. It's going to add some significant cost in next year's budget. And I'd like to recommend that we consider a resolution next week. School boards has a model resolution asking the legislature to take a look at it again. It was promised to save everyone money, and I'm not convinced from all that I'm hearing and reading that it's doing that. So why don't we, if everyone's amenable to that, I think we need to request that be looked at again. So other than that, I'm going to see if administration has any closing thoughts or comments.
No, just everybody have a great week. Acknowledge our nurses. We will be doing that district-wide tomorrow. So happy Nurses Day, and thank you all for your continued support. Have a great night.
Okay, guys, may I have a motion, please?
So made.
Second. Motion is second. Hands are raised. Everyone have a very good evening. We'll see you next week.